Tribal Commander. Two words that activate your omens and bring to mind visions of grand, clunky, battleship-like commander games that take 3 hours to play out. The EDH community has rather mixed feelings on tribal decks. For some, it's the ultimate expression of the casual format, and for others, it's crawl manifest that only babies enjoy. Tribal decks work well in a format like Commander, where many creatures that are otherwise unplayable find their homes in decks that need slots filled. For some creature types, in fact, EDH is the only format where they'll really see play, since they're too slow or unwieldy to really make waves in more traditional gameplay environments. And while your deck is fairly important when sitting down to play EDH, far more important is the card at the head, your commander. And today I want to take a moment to talk about what I believe to be the best commander in the game, the legendary vampire Edgar Markov. Now, you might be confused by what I mean when I say best commander. Let me alleviate that confusion somewhat. Edgar Markov is, by nature, a commander that stifles all creativity for commander tribal decks. He's bad for the deck, not because he's a bad card, but because he's so good that there's no other options. You see, for most tribal decks in the game, you have a decent selection of possible commanders to choose from. Let's say you want to build a soldier tribal deck. You have a few options like Darien, King of Kjeldor, or Tajik, Legion's Edge. If you want to build elves, there's cards like Lathril, Marwyn, and Freyalise. If you want to build slivers, there are 5 different legendary slivers, each equally viable depending on what you want to build. But if you want to build a vampire deck, you have Edgar, and that's it. Now, that's not to say that there aren't other legendary vampires. In fact, there's over 50 of them. But none, not a single one, is as good for vampire tribal as Edgar Markov. If you choose to play one of the other legendary vampires over Edgar, you are actively handicapping yourself. Edgar Markov is a Mardu legend, giving him access to all 3 of the colors vampires most frequently appear in. This means that you have access to all of the best vampires. He costs 6 mana, but that might as well be flavor text because his eminence ability means that you never have to cast him. An eminence ability, mind you, that makes literally all of your vampire spells give you an extra body on the board for free. Yes, he has haste and first strike, and he even has an attack trigger that serves as a pretty strong game ender on its own, but this eminence ability, holy shit is it insane. Really, all eminence abilities are kind of dumb, and in my opinion, they're as big a mistake as companions were. But for Edgar specifically, this ability cripples diversity in the worst way. Let's take a look at another vampire legend. Lysia, Sanguine Tribute, at first could seem like a pretty awful card. After all, she costs 8 mana and only has 4 power and 4 toughness. But she costs 1 less to cast for each life you've gained in that turn you're casting her, meaning that vampires, a deck with loads of lifelink, can often cast her for 3 or 4 mana. She's got pretty strong keywords on her, but her secondary ability, which lets you trade 5 life for 3 +1/+1 counters, means that Lysia is an absolute beast in life gain vampire decks and is honestly a pretty powerful commander on her own. Lysia and Edgar Markov came out of the same precon. They have the same power and toughness and are the same colors. Both are incredibly powerful vampire commanders. Lysia has less than 300 decks on EDH Rec, and Edgar has over 7,000. Do you know why? Because Edgar doesn't need to be cast. Ever. This video doesn't really have a conclusion. I'm just getting this off my chest. I think it's irresponsible of WotC to have printed this card, because Eminence is just so powerful that Edgar invalidates any other viable commander you might choose. His price tag might deter you from using him as your vampire legend, but EDH is a format that's been pretty friendly to proxies, so if you really want to use him, you can. And I think it's equally irresponsible of the Rules Committee to allow this guy to still be legal. Golos was banned because of how he stifled creativity by being so generically good. How is Edgar Markov not guilty of the same thing? There's other examples of best commanders for a tribe, certainly, but more often than not, it's because that commander is the only card in that space for the tribe. Ayula, Queen of Bears, doesn't invalidate other legendary bears, because she's the only legendary bear, making her the best choice by default. There's plenty of other examples like her, almost always in tribes that have few, if any, legends. Thanks for watching, and please keep in mind that all of this is just my own opinion. What do you all think? Leave comments below, subscribe for more content, and if you want, support me on Patreon. I'd really appreciate it. Have a great day, guys.